Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches, and today we are going to be talking about The Parent Trap from both 1991 and 1961, and 1998. And in particular, and I'll preface this by saying I quite like the 1961 film. I've definitely liked it a lot as a kid when I first saw it, but I'm also a big fan of the 1998 film, and we're going to be doing a bit of a comparison of the two. But first of all, the plot of The Parent Trap, it's pretty straightforward. Two young women, both from single-parent families, meet at a summer camp that is held far from their respective homes and discover that they are identical to each other. And, rather than seize on this amazing opportunity for pranks, they apparently are mad that somebody else looks like they do, and they become squabbling rivals. And they have very different personalities, so that's probably a factor as well. Eventually, their escalating antics become so bad that the camp authorities basically force them into isolation together, and they have to spend all of their time together so they'll work things out. Which is when, surprise, surprise, they realise that their respective single parents are each other's exes, and that they are twin sisters. I bet you didn't see it coming. And now, at this point, obviously, the shenanigans that you can have when somebody looks identical to you do occur to them, and they resolve to swap places, meet the respective parental unit they've never known, and just maybe help get them together. Yeah, that's a reference that will make more sense if you watch the 1961 version of this film. But yes, maybe get them together. So that's the plot in both cases. I mean, and when you remake a movie, you don't generally massively change the basic premise and plot. I'm not going to say you never do it, but you don't generally do it. Which, brings me to the fact that we are talking about both the original movie and the remake here. And many people hate remakes on principle. Now, I won't pretend that some remakes aren't just cynical cash grabs or just, bad movies, because some remakes are bad movies. But I'm not an automatic hater of remakes. And this movie is a significant reason why. It's a good example of how sometimes revisiting a film's idea years or decades later leads to good outcomes. So let's talk about why that is. So first of all, what was considered harmless humour in 1961 would not be viewed that way 40 years later, and would not be viewed that way today either, for that matter. The 98 version updates many of the quote-unquote funny sequences universally for the better. For instance, the young women's pranks at summer camp become much more extravagant, but much less destructive. So in 1961, in the 1961 version, one of the characters destroys her, unbeknown sister's favourite, presumably very expensive dress, and that's played for laughs. Ha ha ha, somebody cut the back of her dress out, she doesn't know. It's not actually a very funny thing to do. It's quite unkind. In 1998, instead of that, we have a massive Rube Goldberg machine of shaving cream, treacle, and feathers, much of which actually ends up on the hapless camp counsellors, leading to their decision to isolate the two kids. It's much more kind of... Because it's much less plausible, they must have spent hours putting together this, this thing. And we're supposed to believe like a bunch of 11-year-old girls did it, or boys. Boys would be even worse at this probably. Because it's less plausible and more extravagant and less directly destructive, it can be funny in a way that 1961 doesn't feel funny anymore. Similarly, in 1998, the two parents make reference to the fact that they used to have very blazing rows, and I think that that the mother once threw a hairdryer at the father. But in 1961, the mother literally punches the father in the face on screen. Now, she's apologetic about it afterward, but both her punching him and her efforts to then make up for it and get him a stake for his eye and all this kind of thing, it's all played for laughs, and it's not funny. Punching people isn't funny. Don't punch people. Particularly people you supposedly care about and are going to end up with at the end of the movie. So very different expectations about what is funny, 40 years apart, and a lot of the humour in the original has not dated well. Secondly, there are three obvious plot beats big reveals that these movies, because there are two of them, have to hit on the way to their finale. Number one, the two daughters have to meet for the first time and discover they're identical. Number two, they have to discover they are twin sisters. And number three, the fact that they've swapped parents needs to be discovered. Now, the 1998 version nails all of these moments much better than the original. It has a more elaborate first encounter, involving a fencing match, no less. It has a bigger build to the discovery of their shared parentage. And it has not one but several great reveals as more and more people learn about the swap. Like, if you ever need like a 4-minute heartwarming pick-me-up, like for me, I just need to watch the scene from the 98 film where one of the girls reveals the truth for the very first time to their family housekeeper. Lisa Walters, playing the housekeeper, just nails this scene. It's great. It's just this lovely little heartwarming moment in the film. So yeah, it does all of those sequences better than the original. And you know, let's be fair, it should. It's got the original to build on. It's got 40 more years of making movies to build on. It should do them better, but it does, and that's important. Finally, society evolves, and this is kind of like the fact that humor has changed, and what was funny is no longer what in 1998. What was funny in 1961 doesn't fly anymore. But more broadly, society has changed, and remaking the movie allowed for a chance to update a lot of the elements. In particular, expectations of what is proper and appropriate for adult female characters. What women are expected to be able to do in 1998 and how they're expected to be able to act is very different, thank goodness, than from 1961. And, I'm not saying women can do anything they like and that there aren't still constraints on them even today, because there are. But, remaking the movie allowed for an opportunity to update the roles of the adult women. So in 1961, the twins' mother lives at home with her parents, and she does some charity work on the side and yearns for a man. In the 1998 version, she's a successful businesswoman and her parents live with her. Or her father lives with her, but she is busy and active and has her own life. Similarly, in the update, their dad's housekeeper has a much more relaxed and personal relationship with her employer and his daughter. Times change, and revisiting a story to tell it again through the lens of those changes and to update some of the messaging that is unconsciously in them is worthwhile. At least to my mind. So yeah, give remakes a chance is basically what I'm saying. Some of them are going to suck, but some of all movies suck. And sometimes you get a better movie because times have changed. Or you get a more entertaining for modern audiences movie, at least, shall we say. So that's what I have to say about the Parent Traps, I guess, the Parent Trap films. Next time, on a kind of similar note, I guess, sort of, I'm going to talk about The Little Shop of Horrors from 1960. Now, you're probably more likely, if you are familiar with Little Shop of Horrors, you're probably more likely familiar with the 1986 musical film, which doesn't have the word "the" in the title. That's not technically a remake of this. It's an adaptation of the stage show that this film inspired. But still, having just touted the virtues of the remake, I thought it might be interesting to look at an original and talk about how this film works. And it is it's quite a different movie from the 86 film. So we'll be talking about that, what I like about it, what works in it, what's interesting about its production, because it's a Roger Corman movie, so there's going to be some stories about the production. So that's next time. In the meantime, hope you enjoyed this one, and yeah, catch you for The Little Shop of Horrors.